Welcome to pharmacology. Today, we will discuss about the drugs which act as a general anesthetic agent. Few terminologies should be understood. We know what is the pain and unpleasant sensation. Nociception is the perception of painful stimulus. Analgesia is the loss of pain. Anesthesia is unconsciousness. When unconsciousness or there is anesthesia from a local part of the body, then it is called as a local anesthesia. When whole body is involved, then it is called as the general anesthesia. What do I mean by general anesthetics? These are the drugs which produce the reversible loss of all sensation and the consciousness. When consciousness is lost, then it is associated with loss of all sensation. There is unconsciousness. Amnesia is there. A patient is unable to recall the recent memory. Good muscle relaxation and loss of reflexes. And that's why whenever general anesthesia is produced, it is not only the unconsciousness is produced, but along with it, there is a loss of all sensation, amnesia, loss of reflexes, and muscle relaxation. All these factors or all these characters cannot be produced by only a single drug. And that's why we usually perform a shopping type behavior. We take the different drugs together, some muscle relaxants, some amnesic drug like diazepam, and we give the drug together so as to produce the general anesthesia. This is called as the balanced anesthesia. The advantage of balanced anesthesia is that we require a small dose of anesthetic agent which decreases the toxicity, and it is a safer practice. Patient is quite safe as far as the respiration or the important physiological process is concerned. Before 1800, general anesthesia was absent. And for the first time, William T.G. Morton, he was the second year medical student, a dentist working at Boston. He had observed while working with the ether that the animal can handle the pain under the influence of ether. He tried the ether on himself, and finally he administered the ether to a patient having a neck tumor removed at Massachusetts General Hospital, Boston in October 1846. And that was the hallmark of the anesthesia. He is a Morton, the first anesthetist. Warren was a surgeon, and Gilbert Abbott was the patient. One should know about this important evidence in detail as a history, because it will give us an idea about the drug, how to learn this drug, and how these drugs have evolved so that their pharmacological properties can be understood in a better way. Before 1800, the surgeries were carried out. We know that in Ayurveda, Sushruta was there performing the surgeries. But the picture is very dreadful. In operation theater, you see that instead of anesthetist, and of course, there was no any aseptic measures, not well evolved operation theater. And that's why in OT, you can see that 4 or 5 rowdy persons, they are keeping the patient quiet so as to keep him stable during the operation. And that's why the anesthesia is very dreadful condition. It is the last resort, or operation or the surgery is the last resort in the plan of treatment. But Morton has changed. He has shown the first ether demonstration. He was working with William Harvey, and he came to know that ether can produce this type of sensation, or we can say the unconsciousness. And he had taken the permission, and a demonstration was held in Massachusetts. There was a surgeon, operation theater was ready, patient was in operation theater. William Morton has not turned away for about 15 minutes. Warren, the surgeon, thought that, okay, now there is no use, let us operate with our old method. And within few minutes, the Morton arrived. He was delayed because he was working with the machine so that the ether fumes should be produced and ether should be administered in a better way. And then he had given the ether to the patient, and he told to surgeon, your patient is ready, sir. Dr. Warren removed a congenital vascular malformation from a 20-year-old Edward Gilbert Abbott's. And after the surgery, the patient replied, I did not experience pain at any time, though I knew that the operation was proceeding. And the surgeon, Warren, he remarked, gentlemen, this is no humbug. And this was the demonstration, which was a landmark in the history of anesthesia. Today, we understood these things in a better way, because in this coming era, we came to know the number of things about the anesthesia. And now we're having a number of better drugs than the ether. But still, ether is a very good anesthetic agent in the unexperienced hand, in periphery where there is no any special facilities are available. And you see the era of 1846. See the operation theater. All are in a casual or suit and coat and all morning dress. Because the asepsis, the precautions which we are taking today, like 3-layer mask, antiseptics, not entry into the operation theater, all these things, they were absent. And that's why, of course, the complications of surgery were more. Okay, we will focus with the anesthetic drugs. Few definitions we will also understood. As we have told, the analgesia is the loss of pain. Delirium is a state of confusion. Catatonia is the abnormal posture because of that condition, say the abnormal posture. Amnesia is the inability to recall. The recent memory is lost. Anesthesia is the loss of consciousness. When analgesia, loss of pain, is associated with neuroleptic agent. That means neuroleptic agents are the major tranquilizer drugs. They are the antipsychotic type medicine. When antipsychotics along with analgesics, they are used, then it is called as a neuroleptic analgesia. And when anesthesia is produced with the help of antipsychotic drug and some analgesic, then it is called as the neuroleptic anesthesia. Of course, there is an advantage with neuroleptic anesthesia. We will see it later on. What is the hypothesis? How the general anesthesia is produced? To learn that, one should know that what is aesthesia? What is the consciousness? Very difficult thing to utter in the word that what is consciousness. I am talking, that's why I am conscious. I am responding, that's why I am conscious. I am processing the environmental stimuli, that's why I am conscious. Emotionally, I am giving the reaction, that's why I am conscious. I am taking respiration, my blood pressure is normal, heart is beating, that's why I am conscious. A very questionable thing. But still, practically, we can say that the unconsciousness can be produced. The unconsciousness can be produced by a number of ways. Very simple thing, give a blow on the head, person become unconscious. Sometimes may be reversible, but at a very high cost. Previously, those methods might be used. Later on, it was stated that the anesthesia is produced by some agents which are highly lipid soluble. This is called as the Mayer and Overton correlation theory. They say that those drugs which are highly lipid soluble, they are the potent anesthetic agent. Why? Because these drugs, they act on the central nervous system, the brain and the spinal cord, they are nothing but the lipoidal structures. There is a high coefficient. The drugs pass to this region very efficiently. They block the brain areas, and that's why more lipid soluble drugs, they are the more potent anesthetic agent. But this theory failed because there are number of other lipid soluble agents, they are not the anesthetic agent. Though the potency is increased, but it is not the sole criteria that anesthesia is produced because of the lipid solubility. And later on, a better theory, an accepted theory came, that is the protein receptor theory. It says that in the brain, the different receptors, they get inhibited, and mainly the GABAergic compounds, variety of ligand-gated ion channels. As these receptors are blocked, they produces the anesthesia. It has been now observed that there are a number of drugs which may block the different receptors and they produce the anesthesia. Then some drugs, they are active on quite one type of region, while some other drugs are acting some other region. And we get a variety of combination of the drugs. Today, it is accepted theory that the general anesthetics, they act on a special receptors, say the GABA A receptor, glycine receptors, NMDA receptors, 2-pore potassium ion channels, and they produce the anesthesia. While learning with a general anesthetic agent, there are drugs which are given in a gaseous form. And when we give a drug, say in a tablet form, injection form, we are having a measuring unit. Say the tablet paracetamol 500 milligram. Injection diazepam 5 milligram per ml. But suppose the drug is in a gaseous form, then how to measure? The unit of measurement for gaseous agent is the MAC, that is the minimal alveolar concentration. It is that amount of the drug which can block the pain sensation in at least 50% of the population. So 1 MAC is the 1 minimal alveolar concentration. It is amount or the concentration of the drug in the alveoli. And all these general anesthetics, they are very potent agent. If you increase the concentration from 1 MAC to 1.5 MAC, nearly 100% of the population will be anesthetized. At generally 2 MAC concentration, patient may die. So lethal concentrations are there in just between 1 to 2 MAC concentration. And usually this steep dose response relationship must alert the anesthetist that the very small concentration can produce the dreadful complication. When we are giving the drug in a gaseous form, all the physicochemical properties of the gases will apply to giving this drug. For example, partial pressure of oxygen, partial pressure of the anesthetic agent, Boyle's law, Henry's law, the combination of all these different pressure. So with this background, one can understand that how the general anesthetic might be working. As I have told, the GABA A receptors, we will learn detail later on. They mainly work with the chloride channel. Glycine receptors, they are again the inhibitory receptors. The NMDA, N-methyl D aspartate receptors, nitrous oxide and ketamine, they are mainly working with the NMDA receptors. The excitatory type of receptors in the brain, they are blocked by nitrous oxide and ketamine. The 2,4 potassium channels, they are blocked by few agents. Now in this figure, you can see that we have used the local anesthetic agent, say the drug bupivacaine or ropivacaine, L-bupivacaine, and it can be given by a, say the spinal needle into L2, L3 lumbar space just below the dura mater, and we produce the local anesthesia. Drug is deposited here at the lumbar region, and it blocks the conduction as well as the arousal of electrical current, and it decreases the pain and produces the local anesthesia, that is the spinal anesthesia. Today, we are discussing about the drugs called as the general anesthetic agents. They are mainly given in a vapor form, in a gaseous form, and that's why a special apparatus is required to administer this drug. This drug will go into the body, into the brain and the spinal cord. It will travel the blood-brain barrier, will work on a different regions of the brain, say the cortex and the hippocampus and the amygdala and other structures. On the spinal cord, the reflexes will be lost and it will produce the general anesthesia. When general anesthesia is produced, how a person who is conscious, cooperative, talking with us, immediately goes into the unconsciousness, it is not one state. It occurs in a successive steps. In 1920, Goodell was a scientist. He minutely observed that what happens when a person goes into unconsciousness. For example, let us say that after retiring in the evening, we go to sleep. What happens exactly when we go to sleep? Yes, we have learned in physiology. Similarly, what happens when exactly we go into unconsciousness? That was well studied by the Goodell. And even today, it will give us a good sight as to understand what is the anesthesia. When a person goes into the anesthesia, it is said that usually there are 4 stages. Person walks in a different state. General surgical anesthesia is divided into stage 1, that is the stage of analgesia, loss of pain. It is also called as the stage of induction, from the consciousness to loss of consciousness. Slowly pain is relieved of. Complete abolishment of the pain. At the same time, person goes into the sleep. That is the stage 1, called as the stage of analgesia. Stage 2 is a stage of delirium, a type of confusion-like state. The body tries to fight against the dreadful condition. And here, as the fighting mechanism is come into existence, the sympathetic nervous system gets activated. Adrenaline is poured into the body. And that's why we see that the respiration, blood pressure, the activity, the muscle tone is increased. The pupils may get dilated. But if you increase the concentration of anesthetics, then the person will go into a next step that is called as a stage 3. It is also called as a surgical analgesia. This stage 3 is divided again into 4 sub-steps called as a plane 1, 2, 3, 4. And later on, the stage 4 is reached. Don't give a drug so that a person land into stage 4, because here there occurs respiratory paralysis. Patient may die. The stage 3 was further divided into 4 plane, that is called as the plane 1, 2, 3, and 4. Usually, the major surgeries they are performed in stage 3, plane 3. Here, all the major surgeries can be performed. And you can see that what the changes in physiology occurs. See the respiration. Initially, it is normal, thoraco-abdominal. Then it has changed slowly. Then in a stage 3, you will see the force of respiration is decreased. It is now abdominal, and slowly the respiration come to stand still in stage 3, stage plane 4. The pupils, the ocular movements, they are normal in stage 1. In stage 2, there is a approving of the eyeballs, and then there is a fixed eyes. Similarly, change in the size of the pupil. Initially, it is normal. In stage 2, pupils are dilated because the adrenaline is released into the body. Then again, it comes to normal, and then it is not reacting to the light. At the same time, it is well dilated. Similarly, the eyelid, pharyngeal, corneal, light reflexes, they are lost as we progress into the further stages. The muscle tone, blood pressure, and the heart rate slowly goes down. So you can understand that when we give the general anesthetic agent, that means we are giving a drug which depresses the central nervous system. As we increase the concentration of anesthetic agent, then it may produce the complete electrical silence of the brain and patient can die. And that's why what we are doing, we are giving the drug in such a concentration that person CNS is depressed, but not at a extreme state. And that is the difference in between the drugs which act as an anesthetic agent and drugs which just depresses the central nervous system. Here, the safety parameters, the time duration is quite more, and that's why the special drugs, they only act as a general anesthetic agents. So these agents, they are generally divided into two classes. The one is the inhalational anesthetic agent. They are either gases or they are the liquids which are having the low melting point. And they can be converted into the vapors. And with the help of some machine, one can give the vapors and they can administered into the body. To give the drug every time with the inhalation technique, we require the machine, the special apparatus like Boyle's apparatus. Then it was always a demand that some intravenous drugs should be available. And nowadays we are having the intravenous anesthetics. They are available in the injection formats and they can be given as a injection. For example, thiopentone sodium, propofol, and they are very good inducing agent. We will learn these agent in the next class. So which are these drugs? General anesthetics, the inhalational gas, which is the only gas now available in therapeutics or useful in therapeutics, is the nitrous oxide. The other drugs, they're actually the liquids. Ether, the same ether which was used by Morton, now more purified. Halothane, enfluorine, isoflurane, desflurane, and the sevoflurane. So these are the commonly used general anesthetic agents which are inhalational. The intravenous agents we will see in the next class. So let us see about this drug. The first drug is the nitrous oxide. We know the nitrous oxide that it is a gas. It is also called as a laughing gas. It was called as a laughing gas. We have worked in a chemistry even into the 10th and the 12th class. The William Harvey, sorry, it is a William Priestley. In 1776, he had shown this molecule, the nitrous oxide, a very small molecule, N2O. Though the gas or the molecule was synthesized in 1776, a very long period elapsed when its actual action and therapeutics was known to us. Horace Wells, he tried the nitrous oxide. He was again a dentist, a medical student. He observed that there are few players on a stage. They have inflicted the injury on themselves and there was no pain. And the reason was they were exposed to the nitrous oxide. Then he himself done some experiment and like Morton in 1786, he tried to show the effect of nitrous oxide. A demonstration was held A patient was seated on a chair. Nitrous oxide fumes were infused and he tried to remove the tooth. But unfortunately, the patient cried. The whole effort was useless. And this drawback, this negative show has kept this drug for 100 years not in use of any therapeutics. Then later on, we came to know that yes, nitrous oxide is the drug. It decreases the pain. It is an analgesic agent. Say the fumes of nitrous oxide, if it is given 20% of the nitrous oxide, it produces the relief of pain. You increase the concentration of nitrous oxide, say 30%, 40%, 50%, 60% into the inhaled air, the pain will be relieved more and more. At 80% concentration, patient goes into the sleep. Or you can say that stage 1 anesthesia is produced. You still increase the concentration, and at 105% concentration, that means more than 100% of concentration, if it is given to a patient, then patient is completely anesthetized. This shows that the nitrous oxide is a good general anesthetic agent, but it is not a potent agent. Suppose we are giving 100% of nitrous oxide, then what will happen to the oxygen? Patient is unable to breathe. There is no oxygenation, and patient may die because of the hypoxia. And then a remedy is done. But today we are doing 80% of the nitrous oxide, 20% of the oxygen, and very small concentration of very potent anesthetic agent, say the halothane, desflurane, isoflurane, sevoflurane, only 0.5 to 1.5 or 1 to 3% concentration is added to this mixture, and we get a prolonged anesthesia. Not only prolonged anesthesia, but very safe anesthesia, because this three combination, oxygen, nitrous oxide, sevoflurane, isoflurane, the safety is increased. The potency is well maintained. With small concentration of the drug, we can give a prolonged anesthesia. So much so prolonged that during the plastic surgery, during the transplantations, where we require days together for the operative procedure, we can safely use the combination of this nitrous oxide, oxygen, and the isoflurane, sevoflurane combination. Not only this history, but nitrous oxide, the properties are so typical that there are some special effect with the nitrous oxide. When we are giving the gas from the cylinder through inhalation, it will go into the alveoli. Nitrous oxide is not soluble in the blood. And that's why from the alveoli, it reaches into the systemic circulation very fast, because the partial pressure is increased very fastly. As the nitrous oxide goes into the blood, then to the brain, as it is not soluble into the blood, immediately it is eluted into the brain, and nitrous oxide act in the brain, particularly NMDA receptors, produces instant action. And if we decrease the pressure from outside, the reverse thing occurs from brain to blood, from blood to alveoli, from alveoli to the exhalation, and the nitrous oxide is excreted out of the body. So, instant action is the character of the nitrous oxide. It is not soluble into the blood. That's why the rise in the partial pressure and the fall in the partial pressure is very fast. And because of that, two important characters, they are associated with nitrous oxide. First is called as the second gas effect. And the second is called as the diffusional hypoxia. What is the second gas effect? Suppose we are giving the nitrous oxide to a patient, 80%, 20% oxygen, say 1 to 1.5% of the sevoflurane or the isoflurane. Suppose 5 liters of this combination is going from inhalation to the alveoli. And then in the alveoli, this nitrous oxide fastly reaches into the systemic circulation. And that's why a vacuum is created. And because of this vacuum, more air flow is inhaled or more air is sucked in. And because of that, more potent anesthetic agent like sevoflurane, isoflurane is also administered or goes into the body fastly. And that's why the toxicity may arise. So this is the second gas effect, because from alveoli, nitrous oxide disappears very fastly into the blood and the negative pressure is created. At the same time, suppose the procedure is completed, we have stopped the nitrous oxide. The exactly reverse occurs. From the blood, all the nitrous oxide immediately reaches to the alveoli. All the alveolar spaces, they are filled with the nitrous oxide. And there is no oxygen at all into the alveoli, so the patient can breathe. And that's why there occurs a hypoxia. This is called as the diffusional hypoxia. Another important property with nitrous oxide is that it is a non-inflammable. It is a colorless gas. And that's why, of course, the cautery can be utilized. But at the same time, it causes the increase in the empty spaces. The cavities, they are increased, and that's why in emphysema, in acoustic trauma to the ear, the spaces size will increase and it may produce the complication. This nitrous oxide is very commonly utilized because it is cheap, quite easy to control the concentration. It is not metabolized into the body, and that's why in liver or kidney damage patient, one can use the nitrous oxide. In graded concentration, one can give the nitrous oxide to decrease the pain. For example, surgical dressing of the burn patient. To decrease the labor pain, 40 to 60% of nitrous oxide can be given. This nitrous oxide is usually available in a blue colored cylinders. They are having a white collar on their rim. And as they are non-explosive, they are popularly used along with the Boyle's apparatus. But only thing is that it is not very potent. And that's why, though the nitrous oxide was or is a good agent, there is still demand of a better agent. The next agent which one can see is the ether. Ether was came into practice later on the nitrous oxide, but it was the first anesthetic agent which was successfully labeled as an anesthetic agent. Ether boils at 35 degrees centigrade, and depending on the characters like inflammability, irritancy, muscle relaxation, we are getting the different drugs. So let us see detail about the ether. So ether is nothing but a diethyl ether, a highly volatile liquid, boils at 35 degrees centigrade, but it produces the irritant vapors. We know that the anesthesia can be given either by a open method. For example, we can keep the gauze in front of the nose, put the drops of the ether on it. At room temperature, the vapor will be released. It will be inhaled. These ether vapors, they are irritating. And that's why not it only irritates the nose, but also the tracheobronchial tree. And because of this irritation, there is a reaction from the bronchi and the bronchioles. They produces the copious secretion. So much so secretion is produced that a patient can die by drowning in his own secretions. And that's why before giving ether, we give some medicine called as a pre-anesthetic medicines. That is the atropine. We have learned the atropine. It is an anticholinergic drug which decreases the secretion. If atropine is given, say 0.6 milligram intravenously or intramuscularly before ether, then this tracheobronchial secretion will be decreased and patient can have a safe anesthesia practice. The character of ether is that it is soluble into the blood. And because of this property, it is a very slow anesthetic agent. Why slow? Because the concentration of ether, when they are inhaled, the fumes goes into the tracheobronchial tree, into the alveoli. From alveoli, some fumes goes to the blood. But as soon as it goes into the blood, it gets dissolved. More fumes again come into blood, it gets dissolved. And it requires certain time so that blood is saturated with the ether. Once it is completely saturated, then the blood, now it is also going to the brain. And in the brain, the concentration of ether is less, while in the blood, the concentration of ether is more. The partial pressure of ether is now increased into the blood and ether will be eluted into the brain. So this elution mechanism requires some time because from external side to the blood, from blood to the brain, the elution process requires some time so as to increase the partial pressure of ether into the blood. And that's why ether is a slow anesthetizing agent. Similarly, the recovery is also delayed. Slowly, the ether will leave the blood to the alveoli, and from alveoli, it will be exhaled out. And that's why recovery is also delayed. And because of this slow mechanism, because of this irritant property of the ether, because of the inflammable and the explosive nature of the ether, ether is not a good drug in today's anesthetic practice. Because today we use the potteries, explosions, they are again a drawback with the ether. Irritants, it is associated with the ether. Plus, very slow activity. Suppose we get half an hour to produce the anesthesia, which surgeon will have that much calmness that, yes, okay, now I will operate later on after half an hour. So a better drugs was expected And then came the chloroform. Chloroform was invented by an obstetrician, and it has enjoyed a very good position. It is having some good effect as compared to ether, that though it is a volatile, it is having a sweet odor, and that's why patient compliance is better. But chloroform is also inflammable, explosive, slow acting agent, and it can be given by all these different type of technique. What we are finding with chloroform is the usual stories narrated in newspaper and the TV shows, etc., that the chloroform was poured on a handkerchief and it was forcefully smelled to a person, to a lady or a girl, and kidnapping was done. While learning the anesthetic agent, we came to know that it is not possible, because chloroform is very slow anesthetizing agent as that of the ether. To produce the anesthesia or even to produce the sleep, at least 10-15 minutes will be required. And during that time, it is not possible unless and until from a coordination of that particular person. To produce the untoward effect. And that's why the kidnapping, etc., as far as chloroform is concerned, it is not, or you can say that from toxicological point of view, it is not possible. So it is highly volatile liquid. Again, because of the same side effects, the chloroform is not useful agent. Plus, it is having added disadvantage of liver toxicity. If it is given repeatedly, liver is injured, and that's why it is not continued into our therapeutics. Then there was a cyclopropane and then other drugs which are now withdrawn from the therapeutics. The better drug came into existence was the halothane. When ethane makes halo to chromine, to bromine, chlorine, and the fluorine, it is a halothane. It is a volatile liquid, boils at 50 degrees centigrade, a colorless liquid with a sweet odor, non-irritant to the respiratory tract, and that's why it do not produces any excessive secretion like that of the ether. It is non-inflammable, so cautery can be utilized. The solubility is quite less as compared to the ether chloroform, and that's why the blood concentration, they are well controlled. The induction phase is quite fast. We require only 5 to 10% of concentration of halothane for induction, and 2 to 5% concentration is sufficient for the maintenance as anesthesia. So these are the two new words. Induction of anesthesia, that means you can say the step down from conscious to unconsciousness require a full thrust, more concentration of the drug, while the maintenance phase is a continuous phase, require a smaller drug concentration. The halothane anesthesia is quite pleasant. It is quite quick. Patient compliance is also good. The parameters, they are well stable, except few. For example, when halothane is given, the blood pressure falls, the heart rate decreases, the respiratory drive decreases, the baroreceptor sensation is decreased, patient may land into hypotension. This is not of major worry. Major worry thing is that when halothane is given, our body, our heart gets sensitized to the adrenaline. Baroreceptors, they are also depressed. And that's why chances of arrhythmias, they are more. Patient can die of arrhythmia. Another complication is that halothane is metabolized into the body. So 20% of the halothane is metabolized into the liver and 80% is excreted out. During metabolism also, it can damage the liver. Some metabolites are produced which may act as an allergen, and that's why if repeated administration of halothane is required, then it is toxic to the liver. So halothane name, halo, that is the bromine, chlorine, and fluorine is associated, and H is associated with hepatic toxicity. Another important drawback about the halothane is that in few susceptible persons, halothane can produce a malignant hyperthermia. Here, in this patient, there is an abnormal ryanodine receptors. They get stimulated. They are present on the smooth endoplasmic reticulum of the cell. As they get stimulated, huge calcium is released into the cell, and there occurs an increased temperature. So that patient may have a temperature of 105, and again, it is an emergency. So these three important features, arrhythmias, hepatic injury, and the malignant hyperthermia, has given a bitterness to the halothane. But still, for about 100 years, it has enjoyed a good position. Unless and until we have few better drugs like isoflurane and the sevoflurane were available in our hand. So next drug is the isoflurane. Isoflurane is again a volatile liquid which boils at 40 degrees centigrade. It is again a fluorinated compound. It produces the irritating vapors. It is less inflammable and explosive. Or you can say that the inflammability and the explosiveness is not associated with the isoflurane. It is a very potent compound. It is as potent as the inducing agent like thiopental. This isoflurane do not sensitizes the heart to the adrenaline, not metabolized into the liver. It is not soluble into the blood. So the action is very quick and the recovery is also quick. Not associated with post-operative nausea and vomiting. One can use the cautery along with isoflurane. And that's why the isoflurane is a very good potent anesthetic agent used in today's practice. Then later came the desflurane. Desflurane, it is a newer all fluorinated container of isoflurane. Boils at 24 degrees centigrade. It is little bit less potent than the isoflurane. Boils at 24 degrees centigrade. Available as a liquid formulation. And to make the fumes, we're having a special apparatus for this agent. Like we are having the goodnight liquid for mosquito repellent. A controlled temperature is produced so that the controlled fumes, they can be inhaled and the anesthesia will be controlled. So desflurane is again a good agent. Near ideal agent is the sevoflurane. This new polyfluorinated anesthetic agent boils at 59 degrees centigrade. Again, a special vaporizer is available for the sevoflurane. Company do provide with a vaporizer. It has the properties in between the isoflurane and the desflurane. Quite potent. Very pleasant anesthesia is produced with sevoflurane. Even the children and the elderly patient, they are giving a very good compliance with the sevoflurane. not irritable to the tracheobronchial tree. Quite good smell. No complications. Stability with the cardiovascular and the respiratory system is quite good. And that's why sevoflurane is a good agent. The anesthesia is also quick because it is not soluble into the blood. Very fast anesthesia is produced by the sevoflurane. Post-operative complications, they are not associated with sevoflurane. And you can say that sevoflurane is today the very good anesthetic agent. Only thing is that the cost. And that's why only high-end hospitals, they are utilizing this. But nowadays, in our hospital also, we have started the sevoflurane. Very commonly, sevoflurane is utilized in our setup also. Now, when we learn these drugs, which are the techniques of inhalation? First technique, very simple, is the open drop method. Just take a gauze, pour the volatile liquid, fumes will be generated and the fumes will be inhaled. Then we are having some special machine called as the Boyle's apparatus. With the help of those, one can use the open, close and semi-closed system. In that, one can reuse the drug. One can absorb the carbon dioxide with the help of soda lime. One can allow the concentration of fresh air every time into the inhalation. And depending on the need, one can use these different techniques so as to produce the anesthesia. When we want to understand this drug, this is the usual route of administration. From alveoli, from inspired gas, the drug will go to the tracheobronchial tree, to the alveoli, from alveoli through the arteries, then to the brain, because brain is highly perfused organ. Other drugs also, other tissues, they are also getting a good amount of the drug. Then, as the concentration is reversed, the drug will elute from the brain to the venous pool, from venous pool to the alveoli, from alveoli to the exhaled gas. So, route of entry as well as route of exit is same for the general anesthetic agents which are in a gaseous form or which are given in an inhalational form. What are the characters of ideal anesthetic agent? Suppose as a patient, if I want the anesthetic agent, I will prefer an anesthetic agent which is very good, having a very good smell. Not sweet, but even fluorinated like a lotus. It should produce me not only the anesthesia, but calmness, quietness, happiness. All the dopaminergic system should be activated. So from the patient point of view, what the patient needs? He needs the safety. My life should not be in danger. From the surgeon point of view, the ideal anesthetic agent is that agent which can allow him to work in a skillful way from a very small space. I will take only incision of 1 centimeter and I can remove a 1 kilo of liver. And the muscle will not come into my way. They will not obscure my operative field. It should maintain all the stability parameters. From the anesthetist point of view, he thinks that the drug should be safe, well controllable, increase and decrease in the depth of anesthesia, should be in good position. The heart, respiration, kidney, other organs, they should not have any damage. They should be well stabilized. At the same time, it should be cheap. It should be easily available. It should not require any special apparatus. And this type of agent, they are always welcome. There are some few agents which are said to be the agent which may evolve in very soon. Xenon is a one. Xenon is as ideal, more ideal than the sevoflurane. Only thing is the cost, and today it is available only for the experimental purpose. All these general anesthetic agents, they are not only produces the anesthesia. Some side effect is associated. For example, on the respiration, they depresses the respiration. There is a decreased response to the carbon dioxide drive. They may depress the renal blood flow and the urine output. High enough concentration, they relax the skeletal muscles. Cardiovascular system, they produces the hypotension. They may produce the arrhythmias. The heart may depress in such that the adequate cardiac output is not maintained. The central nervous system, the metabolism is decreased, and that's why there is increased cerebral blood flow, which may further increase the carbon dioxide level into the brain. So all these side effects, they are associated with inhaled anesthetics. Some special toxicity, for example, fluoride toxicity with methoxyflurane, liver toxicity with halogen. Isoflurane may produce some bladder toxicity. Then malignant hyperthermia with halothane is possible. So this, one can understand that we are having the drugs which can produce the anesthesia. The gaseous agent like nitrous oxide, the volatile liquid like ether, halothane, enflurane, isoflurane, desflurane, sevoflurane, and the xenon. They produces the reversible loss of anesthesia. They produces good muscle relaxation. They produces good reflex inhibition. There is a good amnesia also, and they are quite safe. And that's why they are the general anesthetic agent. In next class, we will learn about the intravenous anesthetic agent. Thank you.